Perfect. Jen, thanks so much for doing this. Could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do, especially for folks who may not know who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Jennifer White. I am the founder and executive director of ICT SOS. We are an anti-human trafficking organization here in Wichita. We started in 2011. So I kind of built and ran the organization as a volunteer for the first 4.5 years. And now I'm the full-time executive director. So that's my day job.
Absolutely. So how did it get started? And why even? Why get started here in Wichita?
Yeah, so that's a question I get asked a lot. The first assumption a lot of people have is that I'm probably a survivor. I'm not. I usually tell people I'm nosy and I'm bossy, and that's kind of how things got started, which is pretty true. So for me, in 2011, there was a couple of things that kind of hit the media around the same time, a couple of cases, and one of the things that really stood out to me was that the average age of entry into a prostitution or trafficking situation nationwide is about 12 to 14. And at that point in time, my oldest daughter was 12. And so it was just one of those things. I always say it was a gut check moment, right? So it was one of those things that I've lived in Wichita my whole life. I knew the rumors, or there were certain things that happened in certain parts of the city and things like that, but I lived in the suburbs. I grew up out in Goddard, and that was just so far outside of my bubble. And then for whatever reason, that realization that we were talking about kids that were the same age as my kid, I just kept thinking, do these kids have they had somebody to harp on them about their homework? Did they have somebody to fix them dinner? And for the next few days after reading a couple of those articles, I just really couldn't shake it off. And so because I'm nosy and I'm bossy, I reached out to the reporter that wrote one of the stories and just said, what does this look like in Wichita? As a community member, how can I help? Is there some place that I can donate or volunteer? I don't really know what this looks like. And so he suggested that I connect with a couple of different agencies in town, the Child Advocacy Center, the Wichita Children's Home, and then the police department. And so that's kind of where I started, and just kind of started learning, what does this look like? What's being done? And one of the things that kind of came out of those early conversations was the Wichita Children's Home has a street outreach program that works with homeless and runaway youth. And they had some just immediate basic needs for things like individually wrapped snack items and hygiene items and things for their program. And so I said, well, I don't really know what this whole thing looks like for me yet, but I know that I could put together a donation drive. And so we did that. And, myself and a couple of friends, we kind of put that together, and it really just snowballed, because what I started to learn was that there was some really, really great work being done around this issue, but there was also some gaps in between services. And that's where I really kind of felt like community members could come alongside those professionals and help fill in the gaps without reinventing the wheel or, stepping on toes or duplicating services. We had some really great things already happening. We just needed some help to kind of tie it together. So we started hosting meetings once a month where we would bring in a different agency each month to just kind of educate. I was still trying to educate myself. So they would come in and educate, the public on, what does the Exploited and Missing Child Unit do? What does the Child Advocacy Center do? What does the Homeless Outreach Team do? How does this all kind of work together? And that's kind of where we started. So I did not sit down and say, okay, I'm going to start a nonprofit. Here's my business plan. And, we started very, very grassroots, very organically, and it just kind of grew as we kind of continued to meet needs into what it is now. So in 2014, we became a 501c3 nonprofit. And then in 2015, I became our first employee and full-time executive director. And now we have 4 staff. So we just keep growing and doing what we need to do.
That's awesome. I love that it started with, asking the question, how can I help? Rather than the the way that a lot of times, sometimes things can start is like, I really love to do this. And so how can I do this full time? You really looked around and said, like, how can I help, help these professionals, these different agencies? How can I help, victims who survivors who are kind of wrestling with all these different situations? Like, how can I help meet these needs? Which I think is just such a great way to approach serving and approach, enabling the community to kind of thrive, is saying, what is it about that I can help with? What is it about you that I can strengthen? What is it about you that I can help you continue to win? And I think that's part of what's made you guys so successful. I just love it.
Well, thank you. Well, and what people watching might not know is TJ helps provide some training to our volunteers. And this is one of the things that we talk a lot about as we're talking about, how do we approach this issue, is coming at it from that standpoint of asking questions. What is the need? What are the resources that are available? And then, how do we help kind of tie those things together and play off of the strengths that we already have in our community? So yeah.
Absolutely. So how is the coronavirus kind of affected how you guys have operated? I mean, I'm sure that the way the different agencies, I'm sure that the child, the missing and exploited children's unit is still very active and working, but how they're working is probably really different. And how you guys as a team are working, as a staff of 4, like how's things changed for you all?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, we do a lot of prevention education in the schools. We work with middle school and high school students on helping them recognize, what trafficking is, what exploitation is, some healthy and unhealthy relationship type of things. We have a 4-module curriculum that we take into the school. So we spend between 2 and 4 days in a classroom with groups. We went on spring break and never came back.
Yeah.
So normally the spring is really, really busy for us in middle schools. That's when a lot of the middle schools do their human growth and development units. And so that was the biggest, immediate change, was that, okay, the rest of our semester in schools is done. And then we are housed inside the Child Advocacy Center, which also houses the Exploited Missing Child Unit, the Internet Crimes Unit, some DCF social workers, some attorneys from the DA's office. There's about probably 80 or 90 people that work out of that building. And so one of the most immediate changes that we made was to send our staff home.
Yeah.
We have the ability to work from home. A lot of us work remotely anyway when we're not in schools. It's not uncommon for us to be posted up in a coffee shop somewhere or whatever. Yeah. So we do have the ability to work remotely. And just because we do share space and they are still working cases and seeing clients, we just felt like, we could be, literally 4 less bodies, 7 if you count our become students, that were coming in and out of that space. And so because we had the ability to do that, we were able to make that shift really quickly. We are starting to gradually work from the office a little bit more, usually 2 of us at a time. But again, just trying to respect our space at the CAC and continue to be an asset and not a liability as we're kind of coming and going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's interesting too. It's the challenge of there is working remotely is great and has some real advantages, especially to being able to focus and dig into something and, kind of move through a checklist, but you also miss something with those relational face-to-face things. And I know that's a huge part of what you guys do, is helping to interface with the different organizations that are serving and kind of protecting kids in our community. So I'm sure it's been both and for you.
Yeah, we're staying in contact with the partner agencies that we work with. In fact, last week we were able to take some gift baskets around to some of the group homes for, our kids that are in foster care and in group homes have been quarantined and isolated during this as well. And then they have the additional layer of not having contact with family and things like that. And so we took some things around, just, snacks and games and stuff, nothing useful, just completely frivolous, kid stuff. So we have been staying in contact. It's been tough. Our staff really likes each other.
Yeah.
We are very, very close, very tight knit. And so trying, we do the Zoom meetings and all of that. It's just not the
Absolutely.
same. So, but we're doing the best we can to stay connected to each other, stay connected to the agencies that we work with, and utilize the technology that we have to be able to do that. And then just trying to kind of transition back slowly as we're able to into being able to be more face to face with things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So so I know you guys kind of look around and meeting needs as part of what you do, and I've seen you pop up all over both media and social media with the Together We're Greater Than the Pandemic. So tell me about that and how that even got started.
Yeah, so we've gotten to be involved with a couple of really cool projects. That one, and then another one called ICT Together. So
Absolutely.
We're Greater Than a Pandemic was started by Alex Harb, who owns Meddy's. Our staff eats there a lot.
Yeah.
We love his food. But he approached me and said, hey, we are shut down, but we still have this kitchen. I still have staff that I need to keep working. And I think that we can utilize the resources that we have to support the community through this. And so it's been really neat to see he rallied several restaurants together at a time where restaurants were really being the hardest hit. And so it was really kind
Yeah.
of cool. It was kind of this like, screw you to the coronavirus, like you're not going to take us down. We're going to turn around and help people.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was very cool to see. But where we kind of came into that was we have operated as the fundraising arm, so that then he has the funds to purchase supplies and things like that. So the first thing that they did was when all of this kicked up, kids immediately were sent home from school, but the school system took a little bit to get their food program up and
Yeah.
running. And so they came in and filled that gap immediately with meals in Wichita, I think in Valley Center, and several other places. And so then as the schools came online and were able to start providing meals, then they shifted focus to some of the other nonprofits, some of the group homes, the domestic violence shelters, things like that. So if you think about our group homes that are serving our foster youth,
Hmm.
now all of a sudden, well, it takes a village, for example. They have 7 houses, 4 with teen boys and 3 with teen girls. Now they've got all of these teenagers home all day
Right.
that, pardon the dog,
That's all right.
that would normally be eating meals at school. So now they've got all of these, extra meals that they've got to provide.
Right.
And then, teenagers will eat you out of house and home anyway. They're home all day, they're bored.
Yeah.
Um, and so, Alex and his crew at Meddy's and several of the other restaurants around town, Picasso's was really involved,
That's
Grace,
awesome.
they were able to jump in and kind of start filling those gaps. And for us, as far as kind of how that connects to our mission, those are the same kids that we would have been seeing in
Yeah.
schools. So when we had to, stop going to school, this was a different way that we could still serve our kids. Just the need had changed, and so we were able to change with it.
I love the flexibility in that of the needed change, but we were able to change with it. That's awesome because it's a you don't realize how much the structure of school affects our whole community really. It affects our house immensely. I've got kids that I hope aren't showing up on the recording right now that I can hear just in the background, because they're home with us now, and it's just a very different it's different to have them here, and all of a sudden now we've got to make plans of like, now we have lunches we have to provide. We used to have to pack those, but now they're here. What does that look like? And especially when you're talking about folks who are in kind of foster care situations, that's a huge pivot because it was it's an expectation that wasn't there, but it has to be met. And I love that you guys are able to serve and do that, and especially being able to use folks who are part of our community that are already doing great stuff. I love Picasso's and Meddy's are some of our favorite places. And just for them to be able to keep their staff and their team operating in some capacity and to be able to serve. I love it. So what's been your favorite part of that whole program? There was like one memory that really jumps out or one moment that was like, I just can't believe I get to do this.
Yeah, so I think for me, I'm nobody wants to eat what I cook, so I wasn't involved in food prep and things like that. I'm real good at ordering out, but when we kind of started to wrap that up and the restaurants started to be able to open and things like that, and they shifted their focus back to more the business side of things, we did have some funds left over. And so Les Podzinski, who was helping with that project, and I got to run around town and deliver checks to Carpenter Place and the Children's Home and
Awesome.
Wichita Family Crisis Center, a couple other places. So that was fun. One, I got to see some of my people face to face, which,
Yeah.
hadn't been able to do, but it was just really neat to be able to, stop in those places and just say, hey, the community is still supporting you. We know that you're still doing this work. Domestic violence calls have gone up. They're feeding more people, and their needs are shifting as this changes too. And so those cash donations at the end, we were able to just say, use this for whatever your current need is, and do that. And then the other project that we got to help with that's still ongoing is one called ICT Together. So that was started by Dr. Brad Dart. And, the community really rallied around medical providers right from the beginning with PPE and things like that. But what he started to see was there was some gaps in that too. And so things like EMS and ambulance drivers were having a hard time getting PPE equipment. And then we have nurses from here that are traveling all over the country to places that have been harder hit by this, but still have family here that they have to take care of. And so that project has been helping cover hotel expenses, lots of DoorDash gift cards to help with meals, and things like that. And so that project is still ongoing, and probably will continue to be for a while as the medical side of this kind of goes on a little longer than what the restaurant side has.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's such a fluid situation that we're all kind of, as we're getting ready to enter phase 2 here. It's there's always that kind of, what is this going to look like? How does this, what does the future have in store? And I don't think anybody knows for sure, what this summer is going to look like. Every time we get a call from, that 400 number or 4,000 number from Dr. Alicia Thompson, I'm always anxious of like, what's happening this fall? Like, and I know we're not supposed to know till June, but it's definitely those questions around that ambiguity is hard to plan for, and it's hard to know how to lead in. And in particular for you, like you've just talked about 2 big pivots that you've had as an organization, working from home, meeting new needs that are rising up and kind of coming alongside folks, being known as somebody who's a helper in the community and being able to continue to extend that. What in your past has kind of helped position you to lead in this kind of ambiguous situation? I mean, none of us have faced anything like this before. And so what has helped you kind of know how to do that well?
I don't know that it's been any one particular, event or whatever. I think, and I got some of your questions ahead of time, and I was thinking about this. And I think for me, it's just been, honestly, the way ICT SOS was started and built to begin with. There was not a blueprint for what we're doing. We're not, a chapter of a national organization, or we're not really modeled after anything else. Because we started so grassroots and kind of grew so organically, we have really been in a position from the beginning of pivoting to meet needs as they change. ICT SOS is very locally focused. The money that we raise here stays here in Wichita. The projects that we're doing, are primarily focused on Wichita and Sedgwick County. And so we've always kind of operated from a place of, we're going to run 100 miles an hour in the direction of the work that we're doing. But the minute that need changes, we're going to stop and change direction with it. And so that's one of the things that I think, part of the reason why we have the success and the relationships that we do with the other agencies around town is that they know that we're coming at this from a proactive standpoint, but are able to be reactive when we need to as well. So I think just the structure of how we've been from the beginning has given us a little bit of a leg up on this craziness. Like everybody, we're navigating it day by day, or sometimes some days minute by minute as things change. But we've kind of always operated that way.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty extraordinary though, because I do think it's so easy to, if you're running at something 100 miles an hour and you're doing, you're pouring your heart and energy into something, and in particular, if you're having success in it, and you're having fun, like if you could have both of those at the same time, which I know you guys have, it's hard not to, when somebody says, "All right, now you have to change direction," to not throw a fit, to not like dig your heels in and be like, "No, this is what we do. This is what I do." Because it's so easy to get married to um, the specific thing rather than meeting a need and meeting the needs that continue to arise. And so I think that's an extraordinary pivot because again, it's so tempting to, well, we've always done it this way. And I know nobody likes when they hear themselves say that, but it's so tempting. It's so natural for most of us.
Well, I think for us, the issue of trafficking is so complex,
Yeah.
and honestly, I'm still learning every day. And so, I always want to approach this issue from a standpoint of, one, being a learner, and two, being a servant.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of setting your ego aside, which is not always super easy.
Yeah.
Because you're right, when you are doing things that you're having success at and having fun with, because we do, it is hard to go, okay, is this really what is best for, the overall outcome of what we're trying to do? And so, things like this, the food stuff with the restaurants and the medical, what does that have to do with trafficking, right? That sounds like it's so far outside of our mission. But with our kids, especially that are, in the children's home or in these group homes and things like that, this is a really scary time, like it is for everybody. It's very isolating. What little freedoms they have in those programs have been, reduced even more, which puts those kids at really, really high risk to run,
Yeah.
which puts them at really high risk to be trafficked or exploited in some way. And so we just really felt like, anything that we can do to help maintain the stability for these kids through this, that meets the heart of our mission,
Yeah.
because we would rather feed them and, drop off games and ridiculous amount of candy and hot Cheetos
Yeah.
and keep them where they are and keep them safe than have to figure out, how do we find resources for this kid who's now a victim.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the medical. We have worked with the nurses and in particular the forensic nursing departments for years, and they're serving our victims and survivors. And so this is a way that we're able to, continue to serve them as they continue to serve survivors, and, helping get the word out that they are still seeing clients. You can still go to the hospital if you need a forensic exam. Because a lot of people are scared to go to the hospitals right now with everything that's going on. And so, we've just tried to, again, kind of pivot and
Yeah.
meet the need as they arise, and it all ties back together, because at the heart of trafficking, it's people that are struggling to make connection, or that don't have a good safety net, don't have the good resources and relationships around them, that leaves them vulnerable. And so, things as simple as a meal help strengthen those connections. And so that's kind of where we're trying to fit right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the kind of extending those relationships out in order to continue to meet needs both now and in the future. I think that's a great way to continue to kind of be positioned, because it's a strange time. Like it really is for all of us. Is there anybody that you've seen in particular in our community? I know you're really active in and around Wichita. Is there anybody that you've seen that you're really proud of, or something in our community that you're really proud of?
Man, it's so many things. One, the restaurants, the small businesses, I think everybody has really tried to shift gears and do whatever they can to stay afloat, but not only stay afloat, but reach out and help other people stay afloat.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting to see, You know, some of the businesses and industries that have been the hardest hit financially by this are also the ones that are still giving. And for
Yeah.
us, you know, as a nonprofit, we always have a handout, right? We're always asking somebody for something. We're asking a restaurant for a donation, or we're asking a small business for a gift card for an event or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's been really neat to see just the community as a whole rally around those small
Yeah.
businesses. And then those small businesses continue to support each other. And then the other thing that I've really been thinking about lately, I did a training via Zoom, of course,
Yeah.
the other night for foster parents about
Okay.
trafficking. It was a training we had scheduled. They have so much training they have to get each year. And so, you know, obviously we shifted online. But can you imagine? So thinking about having our own kids home from school and things like
Yeah.
that, then additionally having extra kids who
Yeah.
come with a whole lot of baggage and trauma, who are now, you know, probably not seeing their caseworkers in person, probably, you know, not having family visits
Yeah.
in person, things like that. So I think my heroes right now through a lot of this are foster parents. Man,
Yeah.
they're rock stars.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got some dear friends that are foster parents that we were talking about it, and for them too, like the their foster kid has been with them now for several years actually, and he's getting ready to go to college, and is and like even the you know he's worked really hard to make sure to maintain those grades and to kind of overcome some of that baggage that comes, and now all that's up in the air, and so they've been trying to navigate like that deep disappointment that comes with being a young kid and having strived for a goal, and all of a sudden the goal's in doubt, and it's not from anything you did wrong, it's because sometimes life just is hard, and so
Probably one in a series of losses like
yeah,
that for that kiddo, you know, way more than a lot of our kids. So yeah, it's
absolutely,
a very difficult thing to navigate. And then, you know, the staff in the different child agencies, our officers are still working cases and interviewing kids, and the advocates, you know, the caseworkers and the staff in the residential homes, they weren't able to go home and work from home.
yeah,
And so, you know, they've been navigating this stuff with with their staff, with their kids, and things like that. So there's a whole lot of, you know, kind of unsung heroes, I think,
yeah,
that have always been heroes, that
yeah,
now I think the spotlight maybe is hitting them a little more, or we're recognizing them a little more,
yeah.
just as a community, as we kind of look around and see, you know, the work that people are doing in different capacities. So um, yeah, there's a lot of people working really hard, and you know, I hope they know that they're appreciated.
Absolutely, absolutely. Is there anything that you would hope to see kind of changed in in our community on the other side of this? Like, has there been some changes that you've seen that have been positive that you would love to kind of see continue or be extended out?
Yeah, so you know, selfishly, the delivery and curbside service and things like
Yeah,
that a lot of restaurants and businesses have started offering, I think not just for convenience, but you know, for people that do have a harder time getting out, I
yeah,
think the world has become a lot more accessible to them. You know, some of us have had to shift to being isolated and trying to figure that out. And there's a whole lot of people in our community that have been living isolated,
yeah,
that now the world has opened up to a little bit. And I think that's really neat. Um, I think the empathy and the compassion that people have for each other right now, if we could hang on to a little bit of that,
yeah,
um, you know, and we saw the same thing after 9/11, right?
yeah.
You know, and that was it was a short, you know, very abrupt change, where
Right.
this has kind of been a longer term, you know, kind of thing. But I think a lot of the same sentiment of like looking out for your neighbor, or, you know, thinking about, hey, I have to run to Walmart. My neighbor next door is a little older and probably doesn't want to get out. You know,
Yeah.
let me pop over and see if they need anything while I'm out. Those kinds of things. I hope we hold on to some of that.
Absolutely. I definitely have seen more neighborliness. I think that's it's interesting because yeah, this is 9/11 was such a immediate like a profound trauma, and this is I've struggled to how to know how to describe it. It's like a slow motion emergency. Like
Oh,
it's not really an emergency, and yet it is, and it's hard to know. I'm not equipped for that. Like I'm equipped for really big crises. Like that's kind of my default. Like that's where I thrive, because I can keep a level head, and that kind of it makes things go smoothly. But when it's this kind of situation, I really need like my people like my wife who are a lot steadier and have a lot more empathy, who can kind of help me navigate the whole anxiety around it.
well, the uncertainty, not to keep going back to that, but 9/11, it happened and we didn't know what was going to happen
Yeah,
next for about 24 hours.
yeah,
And then we were able to start, okay, what's the plan? Like, how do
yeah,
we start to put things back together? And this has been 2 months now, 3 months, however long, that it's just there, that it's like this slow burn
yeah,
trauma, right? With kind of no definite end in sight. And so that's really difficult for a lot of people. And so I
yeah.
think having a little bit of grace for, our neighbors and our fellow community members, that everybody's dealing with this differently. And I think, most people are dealing with it the best they can. And,
Yeah.
we got to have each other's backs
Absolutely.
and get through this stuff. So I hope we hold on to some of that.
Yeah, and I would love to see that because I think you're right that it's definitely it's a long term uncertainty, and we all want certainty. There was a Nicholas Kristof posted a piece in the New York Times the other day, in which he talked about like every epidemiologist I've talked to continues to go back to how much they don't know, how much we don't know about the coronavirus, how much we don't understand. But anybody who is not an expert is really confident in their opinions and their certainty about what we need to do and not do. And I think it's a hard place to be when because we all just we want to be confident and we want to know for sure what the plan is. And this is just something we've never seen before. So
Well, and it's forced us, to slow down. And I recognize that, like, for myself, I'm very blessed and very privileged to be able to continue working and be able to do that from
yeah,
home. And, my right now, my livelihood is not at risk like a lot of people's are. But
yeah,
I'm also not a person that stops running 100 miles an hour
yeah,
very well. I can change directions, but don't ask
yeah,
me to stop.
yeah,
But it's been good. It's forced me to kind of slow down. My youngest daughter is out of school now and home, and my oldest came home from K-State, so I've gotten to
yeah.
spend some more time with her. I bought a house in March, and so lots and lots of house projects lately. So I've had a little
Absolutely.
time to do that, which has been good. And so yeah, I hope that we continue to slow down and sit on the front porch and say hi to our neighbors and look out for each other a little bit more. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm obsessed with Mr. Rogers. And so
Yeah.
I feel like Mr. Rogers would have a whole lot to say right now about, just one, that quote about looking for the helpers, right? When
Yeah.
scary things happen, look for the helpers. You'll always find people helping. And that's definitely been the case. But then just also, um, slowing down and being grateful in the moment for
Yeah.
what is going on, and that extra time with our families, and
Yeah.
things like that. So I
Absolutely.
I have an overly optimistic worldview in general, so I'm thinking we've got this. We can continue to have each other's back and look out for each other. I think some of that will definitely come out of this.
That's awesome. Well, I love your optimism, especially with the reality that you face as a part of your team of some of the darker sides of what people can do to each other. So, just appreciate all you and your team do for our community. What are some best ways that folks can connect with you, connect with ICT SOS?
Yeah, so we're pretty easy to find all over the internet. We're ICT SOS on all of the social media. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Our website is ictsos.org. And then my email is Jennifer at ictsos.org, so I'm pretty easy to find. We are not able to have in-person volunteers right now, but I think that will start to slowly open back up over the next few weeks. We can accept donations of things for our Fresh Start bags, and there's a list on our website of what goes in those. So it's ictsos.org/give. So you can drop new items by the office, or you can order on Amazon and have them delivered directly to us. Right before all of this kicked off, we went around and we stocked the hospitals and the CAC and some of the other organizations that we work with the duffel bags that we do that have clothing and hygiene items and things for survivors. So now, obviously, it's been a couple of months. Those things need to be restocked. And now that we're able to kind of open back up a little bit, that's a really easy way to help. And then, you know, like every other nonprofit right now, honestly, financial donations are the most helpful because they allow us the most flexibility. And I know that that's not always, you know, a lot of times people want to do a specific item or things like that, and that's really great. But just with the uncertainty, the need to be able to have the flexibility to order supplies and have them delivered directly to us and things like that, you know, a financial contribution in any amount is super helpful right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate all you guys do. I love the Fresh Start bags that are out there, and making sure that we're folks who are in the moment of trauma have what they need to kind of rebuild and know that people in our community care for them. And I love that that's part of what you guys do. So, and again, thanks for doing this. Thanks for jumping in here with us. Appreciate you so much. So.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for all you're doing to get the word out on all the good stuff that's still happening through all this craziness.